A new guest on What's on Your Mind, and this time it's Jan Vermeiren. I have known Jan for, I think, 15 years or even more. I've met him during a network event. Yes, network events. Then you could meet each other physically, and the goal of that night was to get to know new people. And Jan came to me, and he introduced himself, and the rest is history. Jan has been known for a very long time as the LinkedIn specialist when a lot of people didn't believe in LinkedIn, or it was just a kind of a CV tool. Next to his LinkedIn speciality, he's actually has written a book. He's actually written quite a lot of books, but one of his books is The Compassionate Leader, and he really talks about how he sees the new kind of leaders. I really admire Jan for his open and authentic personality, so enjoy our conversation.
Welcome to What's on Your Mind with Peter Snowart. Every week, a guest talks about his or her story, and that story can inspire you to change your own. Here's Peter.
Hi, Jan. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Peter.
Now, I remember the first time that I saw you, and it was a long time ago. I think it was around 2000 and 2003, 2005, something like that. And I've met you at a networking event in Ghent. I still remember that.
Okay.
You know what Maya Angelou is saying, eh? People will forget what you have done, you will forget what you have said, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah. You don't remember that moment? And I remember it was a networking event. I think it was one of the first that I ever did, a physical event. And I went through with somebody else. I can't even remember who that was. But you came to us and you said, "Hey, I'm Jan, and I like to network." And I was like, okay. And for me, that was at that time, awkward because I was not used to that people approach me in such a way.
Okay.
And later on, you became very famous with LinkedIn, even when LinkedIn was still a baby. When LinkedIn was still the CV online thing.
Yeah.
Where did you get that notion of networking and LinkedIn? Because I mean, you're not born as a networker, I assume. So where did you get that passion? I would say.
Okay. Trying to get this story short. I was working in a software company called Treesoft. It's now doesn't exist anymore on its own. It is now part of SDL. And I was part of the management team of that company. And all the business came through the network of the owner of the there was 30 people, I think, in that company. And we didn't have any salesperson.
Okay.
So it was just via the network of the owner. So that was kind of interesting. And then we did a workshop around the power of a network. It was really more like, let's say, writing down, let's say, who you know and stuff like that. So it's that part of realizing the power of a network. And that was like, for me, like, this is interesting. So that was seed number one. And then seed number two was when I started my own first company. People told me, oh, you have to go networking. You have to go to events, and then you have to approach people, and a little bit like I did there, I guess. And then you have to have a great elevator pitch, and then people will be very interested, and then they will become clients.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let's do this. And I went there and I did that, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Doesn't feel right. And I saw many people doing their elevator pitches, and then people, especially in Flanders, where we're both from, and you saw in their eyes that they were totally not interested and want to get out of that situation as soon as possible. And I thought, okay, this is not what's working. So I was like, okay, and I'm more an introverted person than an extroverted person. There was also something like, okay, this is harder for me. So I also examined and studied that part of networking. How do you do that live with people? And that elevator pitch that everybody's talking about, what 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 is it about, and why does it put so many people off instead of attracting them?
Yeah.
So that's kind of was the start of networking coach, those two parts. Um, and that was before LinkedIn and Facebook even existed. But then when those networks arrived, I was immediately looking at what can we do with this. And of course, the beginning was the uh, most difficult situation because I was like, oh, you have to do this. And then people say, okay, yes, but when I'm the only one in this network, there's nobody else here in Belgium, for example, to start to communicate with. So it was interesting because in my workshop, I was immediately putting it in there. Let's say a 2-day training about networking, immediately half a day online networking. And then after half an hour, I lost everybody because they didn't have any reference frame anymore.
Yeah.
So after 2 of those experiences, I kept back in that, but I kept following it. And then the moment that LinkedIn introduced groups, then it was not a directory of people anymore, but then there was more interaction possible. And then I said, okay, this is going to be something big. And that was 2008. And then I was looking at books. I had already written my first book, Let's Connect, about offline networking. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this again because it's pretty hard not writing the book, but the whole publishing and promotion part. Lots of time. And then, so I started looking at books about LinkedIn, and all of those books were about like, okay, if you press this button, then this happens. And I was like, okay, but where does it fit the strategy? And where does it include how you approach people? Because on LinkedIn, and still, you can spam a lot of people. Yeah. Technically, that's possible. And that's what I see, maybe even more now than then, that people are forgetting when they are behind those the computer and then they're logged in LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and then they're sending messages that they are not talking to a person. Right?
They're not connecting.
Yeah. So that's what I also at that time didn't find in any of those books. So I said, okay, good that I have to write my own book about it. And I was very glad because that book really sold very well, and it really put me on the map.
Yeah.
So that was my second book, How to Really Use LinkedIn.
Yeah. Now, what was your role in the software company?
I was a manager of the project team.
Ah, okay. And what drove you? What triggered you to start your own company?
I really loved software, but more as a tool than as a goal.
Yeah.
When you're working in a software company, the software is the goal, and I was like, okay, that's not my thing.
Yeah, but I mean, very early on, you were helping and coaching people how to network. For me, it was actually the first seed in, I wouldn't call it personal development, but networking is an essential skill, especially as an entrepreneur in whatever size that you are, that you need, because you cannot do anything alone. So you need other people. I mean, the first thing is, of course, customers. Then later on, for me, I mean, yeah, the networking part of you, I found it very interesting and cool. But what triggered me the most was the book after that. That was completely, resonated with me, and a special term that you will understand. That resonated with me. Life is a game, because I have it here. Yeah. This is only my top collection of books. So, and yeah, you were so and are so vulnerable and authentic, describing your life path. And I felt that, and the details are not in there, but I don't know, something bad, I think, has happened to you, which I won't call it that you are enlightened or awakened. It's maybe a very big term, but I see a very big transformation there between the Jan of the networker and then the life as a game. Is that correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
For the outside world, yes. But personal development and spiritual development, what's Live a Game is about, has already been on my path since I was 28.
28. Okay.
Before I started my own company, my first one. And behind the scenes, that's what we did with the team. We focused on personal development and also, what I don't think it's a good term. It's spiritual development because many people have lots of different associations with it. But in Life is a Game, I wrote it after I sold Networking Coach, and I also realized that I had let's say I had kind of a burnout without really knowing it myself because I kept going. So it's not like a total burnout that was like completely, I had to be in my bed for months or so, like other people. But
you were tired, eh? I remember you were very, very tired, eh?
Yes, and that was, the start of that was the LinkedIn asked us to become their first training partner in the world. Okay. And it has to be set up a whole team. And the idea behind that was to do a pilot program in the Netherlands in 2010. And every day they wanted to have at some location in the Netherlands a session about how to use LinkedIn for salespeople, for recruiters, for people who want to find a new job. And they asked us to do that. And I had 2 months to arrange everything. So that was already pretty hard. But then, and so LinkedIn there, they said, okay, you do everything and we will, so you do all the registrations, the renting of the rooms and the whole catering part or whatever. And we will do the marketing. So we will put people there. So for them, the idea was we need to get people really know how to use our network and then they will really start using it, attracting other people. And that was their idea behind it. But then they started sending out those mails via their own system, for their own platform. And then suddenly they got complaints from users like that they perceived as spam or whatever. And the legal department in the United States, they really got scared. So they froze everything. And we were waiting and we had 200 rooms booked and stuff like that. I had the whole team with 20 people just waiting. And I was like, oh God. And luckily there were freelancers, most of them, and I explained the situation before, and it was also an experiment for LinkedIn. So it was okay in the end, but it was really hard. It was a hard year. And then I started another project under the umbrella of Networking Coach, Generous Networkers. And then we also worked with another partner. They also kind of the same story. And I invested at the time 100,000 euros in that, and then nothing happened. And I was really like, okay, I put so much energy in my time, my own personal energy. Let's say the money was also kind of an energy, and also didn't really work out that project. And then I was like, man, this is hard. And then I was really tired. Yes. Yeah, okay. So I kind of burned out also because I was like kind of disappointed in the results. And the result is one thing, but also felt like that we were doing everything from our part, but our partners were not really keeping their promises. And that was kind of if it was just like, okay, this is not, nobody's interested in it or whatever, I could kind of live with that, but we were really dependent on them. And even if, so I would have even worked more hours and my team would never get it done, but we couldn't do it. We were dependent on the others. And that was kind of the hardest thing, I guess.
Yeah. Now, you just mentioned that on your 28, you were starting spiritual development. I mean, I think you're the first guest saying that word spiritual development in a kind of a business context, which I, as a Belgian also, where did you get that? I mean, you were like the Eckhart Tolle of Antwerp, that you woke up one day and
No.
how did that work?
Yeah, but it's the way you put it is that looks like I'm already kind of enlightened or whatever.
Yeah. I'm joking a little bit, of course. But...
You know, which is of course not the case. But for me, it's really looking in a different way at our existence here on this planet Earth, and that's what I wrote in Life is a Game. And many people is like, okay, I'm here as a human being, and some people say I'm here as a human being and I have a spiritual connection with whatever you want to call it, God or the stores or whatever. Yeah. And for me, what I let's say learned and what resonated really well with me is that we are spiritual beings in a human body.
Correct. That's indeed correct. It's the other way around. I also see it like that. Yeah.
And that's for me also, if that's the case, then life, you could see it as a game. And in Life is a Game, I have made a comparison with a computer game.
Yeah, it is.
And for me, it really makes life so much easier,
lighter,
and more. Say everything is becoming much lighter or
lighter.
More,
lighter. Yeah, that's correct. I mean, but was something happening in your 28? Because that realization that you had, for me, it's when I was 28, I was still a very left brain, rational, result-driven guy, putting my ladder against the wrong mountain, I would call it. I mean, so young, 28. I mean, still in a period, I mean, 28, I think we're around the same age. I mean, 28, that's like, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that, 20 years ago?
Yeah, 17 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, even then in Belgium, I mean, if you would say the word spiritual development, and I wouldn't, no, in a business context, they would call you crazy, and it was still a very alternative, how do you call that, goat wool sock thing. I mean, where other countries are very ahead. So it was really, or you are the rational type, or you are the alternative when you're saying things like spiritual. Where did you get that realization? How did that? Where did you get that?
I think it was kind of, it's also gradually like being triggered.
Was it a book or something, or a movie?
I don't remember how it really started, but I know in the early stages my aunt played a role in that, because she had kind of a let's say a psychotherapy practice, but also already more, let's say, to the spiritual side. So that was certainly an influence. Also, it was because of her that I discovered constellations, systemic work, in Dutch opstellingen.
Yeah.
And for me, that was really an eye-opener, and especially the experience of it. It's so hard to explain it to people. Just if you experience it, and say, okay, wow, what is this?
It's energy,
Yeah, and it's really powerful. Really gives extra information besides the rational part of it. And then I've been doing that now for 17 years or so. And since 5 years, I'm also let's say helping people the constellation itself. So I'm the facilitator as well. And I use it for everything. For people, for teams, so for individuals, for teams, for logos, for brands, for prices, for buildings, and to get some extra information about what we are missing from just a rational view on things.
Interesting. And this is yes, go on.
Yeah, and that's part of I have 2 brands now.
Yeah.
So I sold Networking Coach a few years ago, and then I started a new brand, Soul Business.
Soul Business, yes.
and it's kind of, I think, connected with one of the taglines. Is connected to one of yours. And for me, it's soul business is how to grow your business without selling your soul.
Yeah.
So it also resonates with you, I guess. So and there we work on two levels. First, I have a very rational, structured approach how to get customers. I just developed a new one. I work with pathways. So we always can get from, okay, what's the problem to the solution? And then I just created a new one for, it's called the customer acquisition pathway for small consulting, training, and software companies.
Interesting.
And it's on the one hand, it's a very rational, structured approach, much masculine energy in it.
Yes.
And at the same time, is also, why don't we do some things? Why don't we call prospects? Or why are we not choosing, not willing to choose, or not daring to choose a target audience? Because we have fears. And sometimes they are much, let's say, more dominant than just the rational steps and the tools that are available. So when they show up, that's also what we work with, and that's what kind of makes soul business, I think, special or unique, is that we do both. So the structured way, the rational masculine energy, and on the other hand, what's below the surface, more intuitive, more working with fears, with beliefs, and that's more for me in the feminine energy.
And I mean, the word soul business, I can imagine that certain people are like, how can you now mix the word soul with business? I mean, aren't those two things opposites of each other, or even cannot link to each other? I have, of course, another vision and an opinion, but in the beginning, when you started with that, I mean, it took for me, I started in January using that tagline, selling without selling your soul. It took some guts to come out with that tagline, because people were not used that I used those words, especially not on social media and things like that. But now I'm like, whatever, it's all fine for me. I don't care if you like it or not. It's just who I am. So in the beginning, when you started Soul Business, I mean, your first prospects, did you attract the right ones, and the other ones, you did not, they repel you? How did that work?
But yeah, for me, the start of the Soul Business was more like after networking coach. I was okay, tired. Not going to do anything for a year, kind of a sabbatical. But then the book Life is a Game tapped on my shoulder, like, sit down and write me. So that's what I did then. But then I got requests from what I call my colleagues, other trainers, speakers, authors, coaches, that, hey, Jan, you've been very successful with networking coach. Can you help me with that? Or can you give me some tips? So I needed a new vehicle for that. And then I thought, okay, it's going to be Soul Business. And for me, I'm trying now to answer 3 questions at the same time. For me, it was because I was already on that pathway for a longer time. For me, it was okay to use those words, and for me also, every business has a soul.
Yes.
So that's also it. So it's when I see, and just a little citing, what I see when it doesn't go right in a company, most of the time is because, I mean, not most of the time, one of the reasons is that they look at the company as something, let's say, something that can be used and abused.
Yeah.
But for me, it's also kind of a living organism as well.
It's instead of an organization, it's an organism, something which is like a human body, which is all parts which are linked together, and then we call this thing a human body. But you cannot say it's this or this or this. This is the human body. No, it's everything together, and it's that total which is more than the sum of the underlying parts.
Yes, and so that's for me Soul Business, and then business is more the rational part, and soul is more the intuitive part of many things that I link to the word soul business.
And
But
so your the people, your prospects or future customers, I mean, when you are a CEO, and does he or she need to be, how I would call it, spiritual, but already some, have some kind of consciousness to work with you, or do you encounter people who, by working with you, that they are entering a field that they were not aware of?
I think kind of both, but let's say for me it was also since I sold networking coach, also on my personal part was, okay, who do I want to work for
Mm-hmm.
and with, and that's also been kind of a search, because I worked for all the major companies in Belgium, the Netherlands. We worked together with my team, of course. We worked for over 500 organizations in the world. Um, and most of them were, let's say, large corporations. But also one of the things that I wrote in Life is a Game is like, okay, what are they gonna think about me when I read this book? So it was also encountering my own fears.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing, the fears, and then afterwards became more like, okay, what makes me happy?
Mm-hmm.
um, what I see, the really large corporate environments, um, yeah, it's most of the time it's, it's not in sync with me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
understand.
so that's also been on my pathway. So I still work for a few larger companies, but they more like they knew me from before, and they asked me, can you do the same workshop like before about networking on LinkedIn or so? And sometimes I did it, and sometimes I did not do it. Um, but the people who were attracted to soul business is, yeah, more like trainers, coaches, on the one hand. And I think most of them, and certainly not all of them, are already more open
Yeah,
to develop themselves.
yeah,
So that's, yeah, kind of, yeah, easier.
yeah.
Or let's say that for them the step is not that far.
And
But to
yes, go on.
link your question
Mm-hmm.
to my other brand, I have two brands. So
Yeah,
Soulmate is one, and the
yeah.
other one is Compassionate Leader. I've went back to the larger corporations because I thought, okay, this is what they need. And the interesting thing is that the people I talk to, they say, oh, I'm interested, but I don't know if the organization is already ready for it.
Yes.
So that was very interesting, and for me a little bit frustrating. um, and then I realized again, it's okay, Jan, what did you say to yourself when you were writing this book? This it was not, let's say, not directly mainstream book yet. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be mainstream in 10 years or so, but you wrote it for the pioneers who needed support. Um, so yeah, don't waste your time in organizations, institutions that are not there yet.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it is not going to take 10 years. I mean, you were ahead of with the whole networking LinkedIn thing. But if I see Rick Ferra, who I also had on the podcast, I mean, he is saying the compassionate leaders need to be compassionate all the time. I mean, in these special times, you cannot predict anymore. You cannot make a plan anymore for the coming 10 years as a company. I mean, so I don't think, how do you say that? I don't think it's going to take 10 years. And I even believe that it's quite simple. Or you are a compassionate leader and you're going to drive your company to the next level, and not only surviving, but bringing it really to a higher level, connecting more customers, more happy employees, etc., 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 being more authentic, and so on. And that will generate more energy, meaning money, EBITDA, margin, and things like that. And all the others, I think it's just a matter of time, or they will come to an insight and also transform, or they will fall flat on their face?
Yeah, I agree with you at some level. Um, the only thing if you talk about organization as organisms again, some of them are really, really resistant.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Even in the command and control environment and that energy. So I don't think it's going to be, let's say, black and white thing. So 100% or zero. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I wrote a book that I saw and see that people need support in becoming more compassionate. And the thing is that yeah, we will see, because it's now August 2020. We had the coronavirus starting in March this year. We'll see what's going to happen next. But some of them already got the invitation, like they grasped it. Okay, good, we need to do things differently. And that's one. But then some of them say, okay, we're going to do things differently, the old way, but then will be different. And others say, okay, no, we need to change, and I need to change myself because I'm the bottleneck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's for me, the compassionate leadership also means being compassionate towards others, but also to yourself. And for me, and that's also looking inside, personal development, spiritual development, and that's for some people a bit scary.
That's maybe a good question, is to explain what do you mean with compassionate leader? Because for me, because I've been following you and supporting you for quite some time about that topic, maybe explain what is a compassionate leader.
The compassionate leader, for me, it has to do, I can talk for hours about it, but it's about being able to deal with tensions.
Okay.
And I make a distinction between three kinds of tensions. One is practical tensions, like, okay, there's no internet, whatever, or process. That's like, okay, I ordered something online, and normally I ordered already with that company, and normally after 2 days I receive it. And this time after a week, I still haven't received it, so something went wrong in the process. So that's one category. The second one is personal tension. Personal tension could be a fear of speaking in public, or let's say, getting annoyed from traffic jams, and or feeling isolated because you have to work at home the whole time. The personal tensions. And then the third category is interpersonal tension. So it's between people. And what happens most of the time is that we, as human beings, we don't really like tensions. And actually, it's a neutral word. But most of the times we have a negative association with it. But what we then kind of do, we ignore it, or we push it away.
Yeah, we run away, yeah.
Yeah, and what happens is that they kind of get mixed then. And then it becomes more difficult to really see what is it really about? Why are we not getting this solved? And in this, sometimes because someone is blocking because of a personal tension, blocking a whole process. For example, a leader who said, okay, this is my project, and it's clear that it's not going to work, and they don't want to lose their face, so they say they keep grasping on it, and they keep putting money on it, because they have a hard time just admitting they were wrong. And it's a very easy example, but many people do really strange things because of underlying beliefs or underlying pains that they are not willing to see, or that they don't even see them themselves.
Yeah. But it's part of their ego, and they think it's part who they are, who they really are.
The ego is, I'd rather not use that word because many people have also different association or interpretation about that word. But maybe it's a good thing to ask you that question. And many times it says, okay, that CEO or that entrepreneur has a big ego. But
Yeah, but
what do you but for you when people say that, what do they really mean?
yeah, I mean, I think that's when the word ego is not right. For me, the ego is a mental construction of beliefs that you build up during the years and that you really believe that it's you. But as you mentioned before, you are a spiritual being housed in, this is your vehicle, the human body, and you're having a human experience. So this means that for me, for a lot of people, the ego is the same as who they are. For me, not. The ego is, for me, is my servant and is helping me to achieve something. So when I need to do something, I will use my ego to make sure to use that masculine energy. And using in that context, a CEO who has a big ego, I think the word ego there means, of course, that he is really narcissistic and things like that. But I think the word ego is there, it's not the right term, but I understand what they mean and therefore you have to be very careful because there the ego is a bad thing. And for me, the ego is not a bad thing as long as you are, because you cannot escape from your ego. Your ego is a survival mechanism.
Uh-huh.
And if you understand that, it's a survival mechanism. So everything you put at it or you give it is going to do something with it. And as long as you are not that, you don't think that you are that survival mechanism, I mean, then for me personally, that's the key to live a lighter life. So this means that and I go pretty far in that. I mean, in terms of titles, in terms of cars and being attached to external things, that's for me a more ego thing, where you believe that when I have this, a car, a title, success, whatever, I will be happy. For me, it's just the other way around. I mean, I try, that's an exercise for life, of course, not to be attached to something external of me. So I can keep I wouldn't call it my inner world or my peace of mind. So whatever happens, like you just said, life is a game, to see it as a computer game. I mean, something is going to challenge me, and my emotions is give me some kind of guidance, how to react on that. But I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as kind of a lesson there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that answered a little bit your question.
Yeah, but for me, it's very grateful to hear you explain it, because you explain it very well, I think. And of course, everybody has their own opinion or their own, let's say, take on it. But I think it was very articulate. So thanks for sharing that. What I want to add to that is, for me, when people say someone has a big ego, it's like they are kind of dominant.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's say, controlling, or let's say controlling, let's say, or they seem to be very, how you say that, self-assured.
Yes, but
at the same time, but if you really look at it, most of the time it's a defense mechanism.
Yes.
Yeah. For a part in them that was, let's say, hurt or whatever in the past. So for me, it's if we really can start looking at each other, like, okay, that person is behaving in an irrational way, or is behaving in a way that is annoying me. Okay, what is going on? And for me, one of the things I describe in the Compassionate Leader is, and I use the core quadrants of Daniel Hoffman as a foundation for my own compassion quadrants. If we can just see that is one part of them in conflict with one part of me,
yes,
while the other 99 parts of them are in peace with the other 99 parts of me, that's already, for me, was already a big shift. Like, okay, just just one little piece of us that's now having a conflict or an argument or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we just can see, okay, this is actually a part of them that is kind of overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a positive quality that is too much of it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's also a positive part of me that is reacting to that, is also overreacting to that. And we can totally look differently at each other.
Yeah.
And for me, then every, let's say, encounter with somebody else that in the first is a negative experience, is for me a growth moment.
Yeah.
It's a moment of personal growth. And for me, that's a very interesting, a very easy tool to use. And in that way, we can become more compassionate for others and for ourselves. And for me, it is a positive spiral. When I become more compassionate for somebody else, I can become more compassionate for myself. The more I can be compassionate for myself, I can be compassionate for somebody else. And that's the way what I now do with leaders, but also with teams, to get at those high-performing teams. Because if you really can see, okay, this person is triggering me, but what does it say about me?
Yes.
And how I can help the other person grow as well. Wow, then we have fantastic teams.
But the funny thing is, when you point to somebody, always one finger is pointing to the other and three fingers are pointing to you. So indeed, when somebody is having some behavior which is triggering me, irritating or frustrating me, or some behavior, I'm like, what is this? Now I have the reflection, instead of judging and throwing something to that person, really triggering what piece of me is triggering me, and why is that? Is that some kind of trauma from childhood? Most of the things are based there. And really look, maybe is that something that person has some kind of quality that I don't have, that I admire, or indeed, like you said, is an exaggeration, a little bit too much. And why am I triggered? Because the thing is, I shouldn't be triggered, because it's not about that other person, it's about me. It's like, how do they say that? It's like hating somebody is like expecting to drink poison yourself and that other person will die. But it's actually you that doing something to yourself.
Yes.
And if you realize that, I mean, then a complete world opens, instead of living a complete life day to day of everybody you meet and being triggered. And like, oh, this guy is that, or that woman is this. And it's a very narrow-minded life. It's a very mental life. It's really in your head, because I really discovered it's not about the head, but also here about the heart. And also coming back, and I don't know if that's on purpose, but being a compassionate leader, and it doesn't mean that you have to be CEO in a company, of course, but the culture starts there. Is that then in a very natural way, you will connect with other people, because people will see you who you really are instead of your title. And that's, in terms of sales, is the best thing that can happen. Instead of being a CEO and a sales guy or whatever, then really Jan and Peter connecting in a real authentic, natural way. It's really, you can feel the transferring of the energy. And and I really believe in that. And I think a lot of people think it's complete BS at the moment, and that's fine for me. But it makes you, I wouldn't call it happier, but live a lighter life. And it's, and I think a lot of people that I see in my environment are, wouldn't say struggling, they're around 30, 35, becoming 40, and they had everything: the career, the house, the title, the woman, the man, the children, and they're like, is this now just a repeat loop of everything? And this is it? And then this is a great foundation for that process.
Yes. Yeah, and I think what you're referring to is kind of that the midlife crisis is becoming a little bit earlier. And I think because of the way consciousness in general has already, let's say, built up, one of the models I use for that are spiral dynamics. Um, yeah, it's one of the models. Um, is that it enables, it's maybe a little bit weird expression, but it enables people to have their midlife crisis sooner
Mm-hmm.
so they can learn, go through that. So actually what happens there is that you make a shift in consciousness. Um, so you can have one or two other shifts of consciousness in the same lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say 100 years ago, it was, some people didn't have a midlife crisis because they died before that moment could happen, right? So I don't know if I explained this very well, but the more people have those consciousness
Yeah.
shifts,
Yeah.
easier it becomes for,
Yeah.
let's say, the next generation to go through them, so
Yeah.
they encounter them sooner.
Yeah.
The only problem is that most people really realize that, and that so those shifts in consciousness for me is also a very positive thing. But most of the times, before that you get kind of a burnout, depressions. Many times it's let's say the time in between two layers of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's kind of that no man's land, and it's very, if you're there, it's the dark night of the soul sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, myself, I already went to 3 of them, of those. I'm like, okay, how many I'm gonna follow? That's not really nice to be in them, but afterwards, it's really like, wow, really something
Yeah,
changed.
but that's, I think that's because we in the West we see pain as a thing to as a negative thing, and we are trained to walk away, drink away, numb away the pain. Whereas pain, if you look more to the Eastern traditions, they see it really as the portal to growth. I mean, and I think there lies the thing. I mean, life is a game. I mean, it's like a roller coaster. If you go to Plopsaland, for instance, you go up and down. I mean, and that's the cycle. And if you're in that kind of downward spiral, you think you're going to die. I'm exaggerating. Eh? You think life is black and miserable, and I mean, but it's really that shadow that is going to create an opportunity for, I would say, light to shine again. And and if you understand that, that's pain, that it's not because we want to solve we want to get rid of the pain quickly, so we take something, some kind of drug, so medicine, to get rid of the pain, but don't face the root cause, which is going to make it even worse. We're going to, and then it comes back into your face because you will need to learn those lessons. Now, I mean, if you, maybe these are very generalistic statements. I mean, do you see in your target audience a shift between more women who are more into that than male, than men? And the second part is the younger generation now more open to consciousness, to self-awareness than, for instance, when we were 20, 21? Because I see some people around 23 asking me these kind of very deep questions, and I'm like, I don't think you will have some kind of burnout because you're already asking the right questions. And do you see some difference there, men, women, and then the younger versus older people?
Yeah, I mean, that's okay in general then. um, let's say awareness and consciousness. From my experience, women are leading in that and have been leading in that for already a while, and it's also not, for me, not I think in general, I don't know which I think the Apache Indians or the Navajos, they have a saying is that the men are here to protect women on earth, and women are here to bring men to their hearts, something like that. So that's kind of and for me, it's also consciousness is for me more via the heart. Um, yeah, that's I think why women are more, let's say, leading on that path. And then the younger generation, I think, um, yes, there are more than before, and that's what I kind of tried to say before, is because let's say the generation before us,
Mm-hmm.
um, let's say there was a smaller percentage that was already grown in consciousness than for them. I don't know if I've explained myself
Yes, yes,
very
yes,
clearly.
yes. But I understand. But it's that
So
generational thing, eh?
yeah, the pyramid. So it's kind of we more people shift to the higher levels, and then pave the way
Yeah.
for the next generation. So it's easier for them to arrive in that. And it's also like if you already grow up in an environment where it's very normal that um, um, men and women work together. Um, let's say, but in some professions it was separated. Like in the schools, when I went to school, it was just the school I went to, a boys' school. Now it's mixed. So just already only that part is already different. So we already go. So I had to, let's say, get more in contact with girls outside of school. Outside of I played
Yeah.
basketball, so it was really also on a pretty high level. So it was kind of 6 days a week basketball. So where did I have time to meet girls or to meet? And it's already like, okay, I want to date them, but it's just like interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you already have that there, you already have, yeah, a different experience. And I'm not going to say that's a consciousness experience or a spiritual experience, but it's already different. So we already take that, so they don't have to take that step anymore later on in their life. So that's easier already. Easier. Yeah? Of course, it also brings extra challenges sometimes. But that's for me, yeah, because more people already have grown in along the spirals, what I call from the consciousness spirals. Um, the easier it is for the next generations, and that's why you have now 23 years old asking the same questions when we were 30.
Yeah, and also seeing that, and as this is of course a result of social media, because a lot of people think it's bad social media, but it also has its advantages. I mean, if you see a lot of these, yeah, like Gary V and things like that, he's talking about awareness, he's talking about compassion. Sometimes also they get in contact with meditation. I mean, when I was 20, I don't think I ever heard the word meditation in my close surroundings. I mean,
Yeah.
now it's very common. I mean, in the last company I worked for, we had a mindfulness room. I'm not going to say it was used a lot, but at least we could talk about it, and
Yes.
and it was there. You see, and a company I now work for, it's really common. It's really it's the standard, and it's business, but it's really now in the people you work with, compassionate leader. Do you have more female leaders? Do you see that more female leaders are, or do you see more male leaders contacting you because the female leaders already have intrinsic those, I wouldn't say qualities, that awareness in them, which is not always the true. Eh?
No, and it's for me. It's also I chose. It was hard to choose the title of the book and of the brand. And for me, it's compassion is more like that's more feminine energy and leader more masculine energy.
Okay.
And together they're in balance, and that's for me also. Compassionate leader is someone who is in balance and has balanced their own female and also feminine and masculine qualities. Um, um, no, I cannot really say that one of them is dominant. It's I think it's kind of more or less 50-50 of people who are interested. Yeah. Yeah. But maybe one thing I wanted to add to something what you said before about compassion and about pain. Um, for me, one of the things that what really is a compassionate leader is someone who can be just be whatever is happening, whether it's something that we perceive as joyful or something that's you see as sad, that you just can be there with the other person or with a group of people and what they call hold the space.
Holding space, yes.
And then if, let's say, so without having or wanting to fix something.
That's male, eh? That's typical male, eh? Fixing.
So it's like the typical metaphor about the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, and someone said, "Oh, I want to help him," so they cut the thing, and the butterfly is not strong enough. So for me, it's also being compassionate. Is really acknowledging the power that's is in each human being,
Yeah.
and focusing on that. And then if the other person has a request, then you can still say, okay, I want to take action. I want to support or whatever, but not trying to fix it from. So for me, the difference is many people say, oh, compassion, I want to help someone because I think they are a victim of something.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Here we are.
For me, it's like, no, it's about really making contact with the power in everybody and that they can solve it themselves. And if they need help, so you can also ask, okay, do you need help with that? Without saying, but it's something else than saying like, okay, I will do this for you, or you need to do it this way. And one of the things for me, one of my pet peeves is unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
People give it all the time in their personal life, in their business life, and from a good intention most of the time. But what you see, what happens when people start giving unsolicited advice, it kind of frictions start in. And people don't really get it. Like, oh, I was coming from a good intention. I want to help this person. Yes, but you also consider them as a victim. And people don't like to be considered as a victim, and then they push back.
Yeah.
So,
but there's also another thing about that is that which is, and I also had that. When you read some kind of book, you had an aha eureka moment, and then you're like, yeah. Especially when you start with personal development, you're like, I want to share this with the complete world, and then you see people, and the fact that you want to help these people, indeed, you see them as victims, but it's really something which is wrong with you, and a learning point. And the fact that now I see everybody has his own path and his own journey, and if you, how do you say that? If you cannot take away the lessons of that person, so you have to let them make their mistakes and learn from it instead of taking away the lessons, because then you're not helping that person. Sometimes it's like you're saying, it's holding space, is being there, but not doing something for them unless they ask you, can you help me? Can you coach me? Whatever. And letting just that person be and being there, let them be emotionally safe, that they know that you are there, and then you let them make their mistakes on their journey. And that for me is the key. I've wrote that, I've got that from the author of Eat, Pray, Love. I forgot her name, and she wrote that book, and then came the movie with who was it?
I think her name is Elizabeth Gilbert.
Indeed, correct. And she said, I made lots of money with that book, and then I helped lots of so-called friends with my millions. So I gave them a house, I gave them a course, I gave them whatever. None of them are friends anymore, and I actually took away all their lessons. When somebody is poor, I give them money. No, you should let them be on their paths instead of taking away those lessons. And that's and I really believe in that. And it sounds really contradictory because you need to help them. No. I mean, if they want your help, they're going to ask it. You just need to be there instead of just fixing thing, which is also something I needed to learn also in personal relationship, because the typical male thing, you have a problem, okay, this is A to B, this is because we're so trained, especially in the business world and in the more in schools, as a male, fix it, the way problem solvers, as we call it. We're problem
Yeah.
solvers. No, I don't believe in that anymore. It's really holding space, being there, letting them do their story, and just that they have room to tell their story. That's enough.
Yeah, sometimes. Depends for me on the situation, but maybe that will take us too far.
Yeah. Now, Jan, if you would go back with the DeLorean and Back to the Future, and you would meet Jan when he is 18, what would you say to him as advice?
It's going to be a very interesting ride. Now, advice, yeah, just take the decisions. Don't, yeah, yeah, everything that will be on your path will come on your path. And why I'm saying this, when I was 18, I was like, okay, I have to study something. I don't know what. So I was hesitating between psychology and commercial engineer.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that only exists in Flanders, I think. So it's kind of economic.
Yeah.
So I chose the commercial engineer with specialty in IT. Well, why that? Because it was very, very varied. So lots of courses, lots of input, and I'm very glad that I did that, because the psychology thing came really when I was 30 or so, and it really came up again. And then I would say I learned it at my own pace, and in the environment that was for me the writing. When I would have studied psychology when I was 18, 19, I would have ended up in this, let's say, for me, let's say, restricted box.
Yeah,
and
bubble.
that's institutions, and that's the way you have to do this, and these are the rules. And now, for me, there are no really rules. That's more the entrepreneur in me. And I do it, yeah, I can let's say, connect things the way I experience them when I read them. And yeah, now when I study something now, it goes 10 times faster than before. So I think I learned already lots more about psychology than I would ever have learned in those years at university.
But it's also because you know that you don't know.
Yes.
Now, what are you reading at this moment?
At this moment, I'm rereading The Way of Mastery, which was a big influence on Life is a Game. So it's a spiritual book.
From who is it?
His name is, it's kind of his artist name, J.M. J-A-Y-E-M.
Okay, interesting. I don't know it.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the Course in Miracles?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, this is for me the easier version.
Okay.
And it relates more to me because and it also gives, let's say, feedback on the Course in Miracles. It's and it's one of the things that I learned is that the Course in Miracles was written for more people, really mental people, from an academic background.
Yeah.
While kind of the Way of Mastery is more focused more also on feelings.
Okay.
For me, it's I enjoy it more than the Course in Miracles. I think for me, the Course in Miracles is tougher. It's like, okay, read 3 pages. Now I have to.
Yeah, that's also what I found. Yeah, I find it it doesn't flow. I would say it. Yeah.
It's really intense. And while the other, and it's kind of it's more recordings, and then it was transcribed in books. It's 3 books. So if you let's say feel a connection with the Course in Miracles, I really recommend reading those books.
You triggered me. And are you writing a next book?
Well, when I wrote The Compassionate Leader, I started with one kind of an idea, and then it turned into another, and then the third one. So still have material there left that I might use again. But yeah, I've been more creating ebooks.
Yeah, I
uh,
saw it. Yeah.
yeah, so one about what I already shared about excuse me, the customer acquisition pathway. I just wrote an ebook about that, and also um, another one about high performing teams. Also
Okay.
a pathway for that. So yeah, writing is apparently something that I am here to do in this lifetime. Um, so, but yeah, maybe I'll turn them in actual books. But for me, it's yeah, those ebooks are most ebooks I write are for free, and that's kind of my way to
Give back.
yeah, give back and also inspire other people. Say that it's not that it's just one time a time investment from my part, and then other people can read it whenever they want, and hopefully they inspire each other and they take action with that. So
Yeah,
um,
I find that so beautiful, that giving aspect. Now, in 10 years, who is Jan?
I don't know. One of the things, yeah, I think 10, no, let's say 5 years ago, I just like, okay, and don't make any long-term goals anymore. Maybe I will do that again in the future. I don't know. It's like, okay, I'm just more like, how is life unfolding? What is
Yeah.
life showing me? And it's sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard for me. um, so I don't know. I hope I will be even more compassionate, um, and I will have more life experience, so that will be good. So the downside of that might be that I even know more that I don't actually
No.
don't know anything at all, and that I won't write any books anymore. Because I had one time after, yeah, I sold networking coach, and I was going through my own, decompression phase. I was like, oh, who am I to tell anyone what they should do? Or and then the next thing was, who am I to write another book or to give another workshop? Because it just, I'm telling them you have to do this, this, and this, or these are the steps that you can reach a goal. But that's maybe for me like that, but maybe only for me. So who am I to do that? And now, in the meanwhile, that changed already a little bit, and now it's more like, okay, this is my experience. This is how some people can reach their goals, or and please make your own version of it.
Yes.
So that's already changed. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious who I'm going to be in 10 years from now.
Yeah, but I share the same philosophy. I mean, instead of I wouldn't say, yeah, having goals. I mean, it's about following the path that gives you positive energy, and it's like driving a car where you can see 100 meters in front of you, and then the road is unfolding itself. And instead of just having goals and really sticking to that, because that again is fear. It's fear towards the future, and of course, it's about living in the here and now. So yeah. Okay. Now, a last question, Jan. What is still a crazy dream for you? But a crazy one, eh? I mean, I don't know. Crazy, something that you think, not writing another book and becoming a number one on Amazon. That's the easy part.
Um, to be honest, there's nothing that comes to mind immediately.
I don't know. Do you want to do a TEDx or something? Or
one of the things is that so I've written now 4 books and now co-wrote a few other ones. but it's also when I look back now and I, let's say, put my books on my own personal development path, and then when I compare it to the spiral dynamics, I just see where those books fit. And when I wrote my first book, I wanted to be known, want to be seen, and beneath that, I wanted to be loved. And then the second one was still a little bit about that. And then it's in the orange layer of this consciousness. And life is a game was the green layer, and the compassionate leader is the yellow layer. The spiral dynamics, people who are watching this and know Frederick Laloux's book, Reinventing Organizations, he uses the model of Ken Wilber. Yeah. So for him, it's orange, green, and teal. So for me, the compassionate leader is in teal. And what happens if you're there is that it doesn't matter anymore so much those, let's say, those goals or
being famous, you mean?
Crazy thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I understand.
And one of the things also maybe because I already had a portion of that. I was in my field known, #1 bestseller and stuff like that. And yeah, it's not it was a driver.
Yeah.
Also how I achieved it, but it's not a driver anymore. And it's more now, and this is a much harder one for me now. It's more like, okay, how is life unfolding, and really trying to get in touch with the stream of life. Yeah, it's because it's setting goals mentally. That's something you can go for and control. But let's say following the stream of life, you need other things for, and that's still sometimes it's easy for me, and some days it's pretty hard. So
the surrender.
Yeah, surrendering. I think that's my, let's say, the next 10 years. If I was able, if I look back 10 years from now, I was able to surrender much more, then I think I will be very happy.
All right. Jan, I want to thank you. I'm very grateful that you took the time. I mean, it was a very, very, very inspiring conversation. And I have to say, you are a very beautiful person in your purpose and your mission.
Thank you.
So I wish you all the best, lots of luck, and see you soon, because you inspired me with some things that I'm like, interesting. So take care, bye-bye, and see you soon, Jan.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.